We live? We are live.
Happy Monday.
What's the deal? Yes. Let's get into this.
It's a glorious Monday. It is the 19th of February. Stock market is closed. Market Mondays is open again. This become a habitual thing. Yeah. You can count on this on a Monday. That's a fact. We are blessed and honored to be here before you. Got a lot of information, man. A lot of stuff has happened over the past week, and it's another big week. It's the Super Bowl of earnings coming up this week, so we definitely got to get into that. That's a fact.
Ian, what's going on?
Hey, we got to switch mics. We got a little technical difficulties, but creators, you got to create through it.
That's a fact.
So this is gonna be like Blackout Market Mondays edition, right? Shout out to everybody support the show.
Yeah, man.
But we got a lot to get into.
Should we start there? A congratulatory debut episode for Blackout. Caused a lot of frenzy on social media. Caused a lot of frenzy in the barbershops. Relationships are having conversations that they didn't have prior. So first and foremost, congratulations on Blackout. Congratulations to everybody and salute to everybody that tapped in and shared. Over 500,000 views per clip at this point? It's looking impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to everybody that tapped into Blackout. That was our first episode. So we're gonna keep it spicy for the remaining episodes for sure. But definitely, make sure you tap in on Wednesday. Every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, playback on all podcast outlets and YouTube. And reason why Ian is here right now, we got a big day tomorrow. We're going to Good Morning America. We'll be in the morning hour. Yeah. Michael Strahan, shout out to the good folks at Good Morning America. So hopefully you guys submitted some questions that you want us to talk about. And we're going to have a lot of fun. So make sure you check that out tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what time, but just watch Good Morning America at let's say 7 o'clock in the morning, and then tap in from there. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. And I have a feeling that we just went live. Actually, I don't know if we were live before. But in any event, it seems like we're on. We're on.
Happy Monday.
The deal. So
yes,
we are live. In effect, this is a holiday, but Market Mondays is still open. Sorry for the delay, but we had some difficulties, some technical difficulties. We got 3 people in the studio today. Usually it's just 2, so we have to kind of scramble around a little bit. But we're here.
Yes,
we're here, and the show must go on. So, reason why Ian is in the building with us is tomorrow's a big day. We have Good Morning America on the wake up, 7 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you tap in. Shout out to the good folks at Good Morning America. They're going to be talking to us. We got Michael Strahan.
Yeah.
I believe he's going to be asking us questions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good time, glorious situation. We got a dope episode of Earn Your Leisure coming out tomorrow. So it's a good week. It's a good flow for us. And then, of course, we got Blackout on Wednesday. The most talked about show on the internet right now.
Can we just stop and pause for just 2 seconds and just say congratulations on a successful premiere episode. Shout out to everybody that tapped into it, and shout out to everybody that shared it. It is caused quite a frenzy on social media.
I wasn't trying to, but I think it was done. Shout out to my babies.
I heard there's a new investing strategy out there. That people
don't get that money. Look, 2 simps, 2 semis. Tap in, run them, put it in chat, run them pockets.
The 2 simps, 2 semi play, man. First, just congratulations to y'all for having the courage to do it. Again, shout out to everybody that tuned in. This Wednesday, we back at it again, episode 2. I saw some of the show topics, man. This is going to be another one of those episodes. So I'm excited for y'all, and I'm excited for everybody to hear it, because these are conversations that most people won't have, but they need to be had. So I wanted to just congratulate y'all in advance, man. Well, congratulate everybody.
And congrats to you for not being on camera for these dumbass comments. You're a smart man. We got to listen. Shout out to everyone who listens, tune in to Blackout every week. It's going to be fun. Tune in to GMA tomorrow. Shout out to my Red Panda family. I love y'all. If I made you money, please put yes in chat. Let's go. Invest in yourself.
Wise words. Yeah. And I didn't do this last week. So my pops, as soon as we finished the show, my dad was like, you didn't do a disclaimer, right? I'm like, out of everything we just talked about, that's the first thing you remembered? So I got to do a disclaimer. So before we do anything, and have any more announcements. The disclaimer: our content is intended to be used and must be used for informational purposes only. It's very important that you do your own analysis before making any investment based on your own personal circumstances. You should take independent financial advice from a professional in connection with, or independently research and verify any information that you find on our show and wish to rely upon, whether for the purpose of making an investment decision or otherwise. Please continue to do the research, share the research when it's good, give feedback, and give credit to the person you found it from. That's how we spread community. That's how you end up on Good Morning America. This is like one of those ways.
Absolutely. Give results.
Give results. That's a fact. Yeah. So shout out to that. And shout out to the whole city of Indianapolis and the NBA PA and the NBA G League and the NBA for hosting us this weekend. It was an incredible weekend. Little chilly. But it was an eventful weekend. We ran into some really good folks throughout the weekend, had some really good connections. And of course, I mean, if you watched live yesterday, Team EYL. Team EYL represented. So shout out to everybody. Our MVP, Trev, Queen, Londa Williams, and of course, man, Ashton Higgins was ridiculous yesterday. So shout out to him, man. Everybody, the whole team, man. We appreciated the whole G League family. Sharif Abdul Rahim, who's the president right now. We greatly appreciate the hospitality and look forward to defending our crown. That was a lot of fun.
So can you read the disclaimer? You read it already?
Are you serious?
Let's get this show on.
These guys, y'all.
Prince and Minx. Next Tuesday, there will be no exceptions made if you don't meet dress code. This is a warning to all my close friends and family. Don't call me if you're outside and you can't get in.
Can you also tell them who else not to call? Please.
Don't call.
Don't call any of us, please. Like no
exceptions will be made.
Don't call me.
No exceptions will be made.
Don't link me.
All right, let's get into this. So we have a guest. So I want to talk about some topics before we bring our guest on. But first, let's talk about. I want to get you guys' thoughts on the launch of an incredible video game generator by OpenAI, SORA. So OpenAI, I guess, is going in the video game creator economy space. Artificial intelligence, obviously, when you talk about artificial intelligence, you have to talk about video games. So what do you guys think about this, and how will it impact the future of OpenAI in the AI space?
Yeah, I'm not sure a video game per se, but more a video generator. Whereas before, we kind of spoke about this when we were talking about ChatGPT, where people were using it just for automated response in text. When you wanted to do something that was visual, you had to have a plugin. And so I think Wall-E was the actual plugin before, and it was cool. But just like anything, right? If I can be a one-stop shop, I'm going to be that. And so while they were using the plugin, I'm sure Wall-E was great for them. Why not just have it ourselves? And so the product, again, man, it's interesting. Like last week, we were talking about technology with the Vision Pro, and shout out to everybody that sent me those kind messages. And I have figured out how to power it on and off. Thank you. I tested this product as well. I mean, we kind of briefly hinted at it. Like this feels like Pixar level quality. And all it needs is a prompt. It just needs a few prompts, and it can create an imagery or a vision for you that is just spot on. And from an artistic standpoint, I mean, it's a lot of trouble for people who are in the graphic world. I think that industry is definitely about to get disrupted. If I could just have a thought, give a prompt, and have that come out with a vision of it. But the most interesting part is that if I don't like the image, I can go back, and so I can get more of I could really fine tune it to my liking. Whereas if I had to give that to a graphic designer, it might take me a day. It might take me a week. Well, some graphic designs may take me 2 weeks. I can get this done in less than 5 minutes. It's really a disruptive thing, and the quality is incredible. I think it's brilliant.
I look at this app or creation as like Pixar in your pocket. You can do 1 minute clips, which is absolutely amazing. And I put it in chat earlier, like, is NVIDIA truly worth more than Google at this time? But I think NVIDIA in the last 3 or 4 years has innovated at a faster pace than Google has maybe in the last 5 or 6 years. Like, kudos to everyone at Google. I don't want any issues. I won't go on a rant like I did with Meta. Shout to be for it. But I think that this application is going to open up a lot of like the quality was like almost 4K rendering up to 6K. you can't make movies out of it yet, but I think in maybe 2 or 3 years, like you may be able to make a full production or like a full anime out of this. I've seen some people even like make characters out of Star Wars and then submit them to what could be like in a new form of Star Wars. So I think it's a great addition to what OpenAI is doing. And I don't see anybody taking that lead for another 4 or 5 years. Like everyone is racing for second place when it comes to OpenAI.
Yeah, you could just imagine if somebody was to put a script inside as the prompt, and it could generate the actual scene, right? And you do that for a day or so, and you have an actual movie, just from your thoughts, and not having to hire anyone but have a phone, which is a game changer. It's. I mean, the technology's here, man. We've always been a platform that said, let's celebrate it, let's run from it. Let's not run from it. Let's figure out how we can take advantage of it and use it. It's here. So we got to figure out how to take advantage of it and use it to our benefits, because it's not going anywhere.
You did ask a question, though, like how much more can NVIDIA run up, and then when will a pullback happen? Do you think they can continue to be at this pace and hit 1,200, 1,500, or do you think a pullback will happen in the next couple of months?
Yeah, I'm interested to see. We've been talking about their earnings report for the past 3 weeks. It's coming up on the 21st. And we saw a bunch of people raise their price targets, right? We talked about Loop Capital raising it to 1,200, and we're looking at a stock that's over $750, and we're like, wait, it's already up 100. It went up 300% over the past 12 months. How much higher can it go? At some point, it needs to cool down, which is good for the stock, right? That means that, you know what, we're going to take a pause. We're going to look at the numbers. We're going to look at our future guidance and reevaluate. I just feel like, I don't know if that day is this week, though. I mean, that's the interesting part, right? Where people are looking at, is this the time to get into NVIDIA? When we talk about what Meta has already announced as far as them purchasing, when we talk about them having the H1 and now the H2 and all the, the profits that's going to be generated from that. I don't know if this is the time. And so I mean, 1,200 is so lofty that's, I mean, think about where we're at.
Really,
from where we're at today, right? To watch a stock go up 343% in a year and to say, hey, there's still much more room to grow. At that rate, I think they will be the second wealthiest company by market cap. If they hit the 1,200, I would assume they would probably challenge for number one within the next 6 months. And so we've never seen a run like this that I could recall, where a company maybe 2-3 years ago wasn't even, I think, maybe in the top 15 to now be number one in less than 18 months. I don't know when the run stops or when it pauses, or do we have a quick correction? I don't know when it's happening. You can just see this forward trajectory for it because all the growth signs are there. I'm just worried. The only part I worry about is if they offer future guidance and it's not something that's extremely overwhelming and they pull back, right? Because NVIDIA, and we talked about the Magnificent Seven carrying the market for the past year or so. If it does have a slight pullback, maybe a 1% or 2% correction, what does that do for the overall market when you're talking about the hottest company in the world right now? If they have a slight correction, what happens to the S&P? What happens to the market as an overall? So it'll be interesting to see. So Wednesday, I feel like we've had the All-Star game, we've had the Super Bowl. Like, this is one of those moments where we're going to be a great indication of what's to happen in the market definitely for the rest of this quarter, but going into the second half of the year.
I think NVIDIA will be fine. That'll be fine.
So yeah, let's talk about NVIDIA then. So we talked about them having a market cap. What they pass? Google?
They passed Amazon one day, and then 2 days later they passed Google.
So we talked about it. Hit the like button and share, ladies and gentlemen. When XRP a few years ago was going crazy, and I remember the CEO of Ripple had a net worth. He was like the 7th richest person in the world, and they, there's an old saying that when things start to not make sense anymore, then that's when they start to fall apart. And then shortly after that, then the company, the coin has never reached that high ever since. So NVIDIA, yeah, it's a great company, but I mean, when a chip company that the vast majority of people never even heard about 18 months ago has a market cap larger than Amazon and Google, all right, at a certain point in time, it starts to not make sense, right? So NVIDIA, that doesn't make sense. It's not a more powerful.
Are you predicting the death of NVIDIA?
No, it's not.
Let's clip it up. No, we not do that.
It's not the death of NVIDIA, but it just doesn't make sense, right? NVIDIA is not the same as Google. it's not the same as Amazon. So is it overpriced, and will a correction come?
So that's the interesting part, right? Is it as important? Well, if you take those companies,
Please say it.
If you take those companies and you look what their forward initiative is, it's all in artificial intelligence, right? Like that is the thing. Google's trying to figure out. They just said that we're doing away with Bard. Gemini is the new thing. We already know what Microsoft has done with OpenAI. Apple is starting to tease something in their June call. They're going to announce whatever their AI initiative is. You have the top 7 that are pretty much relying on this company to deliver its chips so that it can produce that high level efficiency and that high level of innovation. And so they kind of need them, right? You kind of got to knock on their door if you want to move forward. So if you're one of those companies, it don't even matter if you're better or not. They need you until there's a competitor that comes through and says, all right, we have something that can perform at a similar, if not more efficient way. And the price point makes more sense. It's kind of like this Vision Pro versus the Oculus, right? Like there's a vast difference.
Night and day difference.
It's a vast difference in pricing, right? But there's also going to be a vast difference in the overall function and quality of it and the expansion of it. And so I don't know if it has to be better. I just think as long as they rely on them, they're going to be needed. And for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's very clear that they're the company that's going to lead it. And they're going to be the company that these companies call on, whether it be from Apple to Amazon to Google to Microsoft. OpenAI is inside that. We're going to come and sit Meta as well. They already told you that how many billions that they're spending. That's just what they're putting on. Who knows how much more they're going to spend? As long as they're needed, I can see them passing them. And it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me if they were to lead in the next 18 months as far as market cap.
NVIDIA is more important than Amazon. I love Amazon dearly. Profit margins are thinner though. Let's look at some of the numbers. 44 billion revenue for NVIDIA. Revenue is up 205% quarter over quarter. Operating margin is 45%. Profit margin is 16%. All of the major companies on earth are relying on them. And the sector that matters the most to the United States of America, they have by the huevos. What are we talking about? Like, I wish Google would have innovated a lot. Shout out to everyone at Google corporate because I need y'all, right? Yeah. Listen, I wish they would have innovated faster. I think Andy has done a great job at Amazon. But if we look at where you're skating to where the puck will be, going back to that Gretzky quote, everyone in tech for the last 3 or 4 years, when you had the ZERP initiative, people weren't applying as much pressure in terms of innovation as they should. And then NVIDIA came and took their lunch. 3.5 years ago, AMD was at 11. Shout out to everyone in Red Panda who got in at the time. It's up 15x now. You put $1,000 in NVIDIA 4 years ago, you could have $100,000 now. Listen, the ones that move the market are going to reign supreme, and you usually have one player that is dominant per sector. Invest in those, and if you would have did that, you would have made a lot of money. The EBITDA margin is 49.39%. The current ratio is 3.5. This is a blockbuster company. This is like our kids' generation version of Microsoft or Apple.
But at some point,
it has to pull back,
right? Like,
it's going to pull back.
It's going to pull. So it's not a situation
maybe
where
10 to 15%, but that'd be a good buying point.
10 to 15%. That would be a heavy drop, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't believe in the company long term. A correction sometimes is needed, right? We always talk about having a reset when companies have to go through this. When we start seeing it, we start seeing layoffs. Yeah. We start seeing. We'll talk about it a little bit later. We start seeing execs and CEOs selling shares. Right, we start to see those signs. That usually means there's a pullback coming. That's not happening with NVIDIA. We've seen it happen with Amazon. We've seen it happen with Meta. It hasn't happened with NVIDIA yet. There's a couple of things that could happen. We start to see when companies are taking in large sums of money. Do they start to offer a dividend? Do they have a split?
A split would be good.
We're starting to get into that range where if it becomes a $1,000 stock, we saw that happen with Amazon. Right, they never split. They got up to 3,400. This becomes something that's not as attainable to jump. Now we split 1 to 5. NVIDIA is treading in that direction. Will they split? We'll see.
The difference between all of those businesses and entities that we named, like how many boxes of wet wipes do you need to order for yourself? You don't need man wipes like 3 times a month. Like they are actually probably one of the most important parts to the digital infrastructure of the country and the world. Yeah. So while Google is really important, I think they stretch themselves too thin with other products. NVIDIA is really focused in on a couple sectors. and a couple clients that matter the most to them, and that's why I think they're doing so well.
Yeah, they're all important. Like I said, look, when we talk about Amazon, yes, from an e-commerce point of view, but also from an AWS cloud point of view, they're still a leader, right?
Yeah.
We talked about them going into healthcare. That adds another stem to the umbrella. We talked about them going to automotives, which could be extremely disruptive for anybody in that space. Carvana, like all these companies that were relying on, we have a certain. If
Amazon deadlift shrimp and NVIDIA Carmelo or what? Let's get to
Nah,
it.
don't do it. Deadlift, Deadlift, first of all, Deadlift was a great
George
player.
Carl, you're a wild boy.
Nah, he's wild for that. You're
a
wild.
Piece of work.
He's wild for that. Shout out to Melo. Deadlift, they're not, it's not compared. We're not gonna use Deadlift. We gotta get somebody better than Deadlift. Don't do that.
Jokic.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a good argument. So if we take those two companies, right, Melo would be, but here's the reality. We had this argument before. This was a sports argument. When it comes down to the history of Denver, there's only going to be one number 15 that gets retired. So,
yeah,
I mean, in that sense, maybe you're right.
NVIDIA is almost too big to fail at this point.
It's feeling that way.
Yeah,
but I think that goes to Shadi's apprehension of if it's too big to fail.
It wasn't too big to call it. Too big to fail when I told y'all to get it in the 22, top of 23. You know, it's all about timing. Like something goes up 4 or 5x, you can't wait to make your primary position in then.
Yeah.
Wait for a pullback and you'll be good.
So we'll see. Wednesday we'll see. And we won't even have to have the argument. We'll see very clearly. They report after market on Wednesday. And so I'll be interested. I'll be sitting waiting to see what comes back. I'll be looking forward to the future guidance because we already heard from Meta the amount of money they're spending. I'll be interested to see some of their other partners and what they'll be spending. I'm sure it's in the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. So more revenue. I think there's an estimate where their EPS, the difference in EPS of what's expected to what the actual might be a difference of $9 to $10, which would be that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. If you beat it by 3 cents, great. Beating it by $9 to $10 is out of this world, and they've done it already. So we'll see.
All right, so let's take a quick break from our regularly scheduled program, and we have a guest.
Yes, we do.
We're gonna bring a guest on early. We can bring her on, and then I'll introduce. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Quinn, how are you?
Good.
So we have the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General, Department of Justice Antitrust Unit. That's a lot. Doha. I want to make sure I say your last name correctly. Mekki. Doha Mekki. Is that your full title? Did I say the title correctly?
Yeah, it's a lot of words, but you got them all.
Yes, Department of Justice. Anytime that we get somebody from the Department of Justice on, that's a big deal. Sure, we have to make sure that we're in compliance. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. This is really a treat for me.
Oh no, for sure. So okay, so we want to talk about antitrust law. So this is the thing with Market Mondays. We try to give our audience and even ourselves some exposure to things that they might not necessarily be too familiar with, or that they don't have exposure to on a regular basis. So I doubt that very few people in this country or in the world has ever heard a government antitrust attorney representative speak. So
first of its kind.
I'm sure that this will be an enlightening conversation. So first and foremost, can you explain the basic principles of antitrust laws and why they are important to protecting our economic freedoms?
For sure. So antitrust and its related cousin, the anti-monopoly framework, are really about the rules that companies have to abide by when they compete. So competition is good. It is the law of the land in this country. And we like competition because it basically means that companies have to compete to provide the best service. It keeps prices down. And what antitrust does is it prescribes some really simple, flexible rules so that you don't have monopolies, right? Which is when one company controls the provision of a product or a service in the market. And when you don't have the undue accumulation of power, right? Corporate power in a market. And there are different ways that you can accumulate that power. Sometimes it's by mergers, right? And so antitrust is applied to mergers that are notified in the United States, typically only the biggest mergers. And the reason it's really important to understand antitrust for your audience, for every American to understand antitrust, is because it is so fundamental to our full participation in our democracy. And if I can say just a few words about what I mean about that, I think that Black Americans have shed blood to give meaning to this fundamental proposition that all people are created equal. Our forefathers have fought for social rights, for political rights, for example, the right to vote. But as I've thought about this work more and really gotten in the books and read a lot of the thought beforehand, what I realized is that so many civil rights leaders understood that social and political rights standing alone would not be sufficient to protect our full participation and our full citizenship in this country. That you really need economic liberty as that third plank to protect all of your other liberties. And there's really incredible scholarship and writing from W.E.B. Du Bois, MLK, Bayard Rustin, and others who really understood this. And so that's why I'm so pleased to be able to talk to all of you and your audience about why I think antitrust is good for the entire country, but in particular, Black Americans.
Given the digital economy that we're in now, like how important do you think it is to have these antitrust laws? And do you think some companies in the tech space are actually too big to fail?
It's a great question. So I think that let me take a step back about digital platforms and the big tech companies. So you should know that the antitrust laws apply to the entire economy: healthcare, agriculture, financial services, labor markets, and everything in between, professional sports, and education, and so forth. But in the last 20 years or so, recall that there was a two-tiered recovery from the financial crisis. Some people lost a lot and never quite made up ground. Some people lost a little bit and maybe are doing a little bit better. And there's a sense in this country for a lot of people that economic opportunity is not what it used to be. And the tech platforms are interesting because that sentiment that I just described actually is true regardless of who you are, your demographic, or your political leanings, right? So people on the left and the right are concerned about economic opportunity in this country. And for a lot of folks who are self-styled conservatives, they're thinking about the tech platforms and the power that they have to censor people, the power that they have to deplatform people, the power to control what ideas even make it to the public. And, in the case of Google, for example, which I can talk about because we filed monopolization cases against Google, one of which went to trial last year and where we look forward to closing arguments in the spring, and another one that's going to trial this year. And so I think that some companies are both big and do things that are against the law. And in the case of Google Search, that is a case about a company that has, we'll say, 90+% share of all the internet searches that are conducted every single day in this country. And they entered into agreements with browser companies, with device manufacturers, including your phone device manufacturers, with wireless carriers and the like, to make sure that they were the default search engine. And what's interesting about those digital platforms is that, like Google Search, is that the more people use Google Search, the better the product becomes. And it also deprives competitors of the opportunity to provide you a product. And so digital market, this is a concept that people call network effects and such. But again, let's zoom out and talk about why that should matter to all people. When you go and conduct a search, you might be looking at healthcare information. You might be thinking of reproductive information. You might be thinking about really intimate personal decisions about how you are going to live your life and how you're going to exercise your rights as a consumer. And so having competition among search engines to give you the very best search results is very important. And we've seen interesting reporting about how, concerns about how search results are delivered can actually bury information that people need, or worse, serve up very harmful information. And again, that affects the experience of citizenship in this country. And it's a way that all of us feel the effects and ramifications of corporate power in like very basic ways in our everyday life.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we hear antitrust laws, we usually, again, we hear tech, we hear Google, we hear Meta, we hear Apple. Those companies always come into the forefront. From a standpoint of the average day citizen, it's tough for us to understand it or have a care base about it because we're just so unaware. So it feels like Big Brother is being watched by another Big Brother, and then whatever the result is, we'll figure out how do we get more people involved in understanding just the ramifications of some of the things you're talking about on an everyday basis.
So I will say that under the Biden-Harris administration and this leadership set at the Justice Department, to include Attorney General Merrick Garland, the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Antitrust Division, a guy named Jonathan Cantor, and other very important figures, including Lena Khan, the chair of the FTC, and others, there has been a whole of government approach to thinking about antitrust and competition issues. So way back in July 2021, the president signed an executive order where he said that it would be the policy of his administration to take into account competition and the benefits of competition policy and antitrust in every single agency. So the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Transportation, the Federal Communications Commission, and more are all a part of this effort to make sure that they are taking into account competition principles in their everyday work. For all of us at the Antitrust Division, or I have the distinct privilege of serving as the second highest ranking official and working with a staff of more than 800 people who are dedicated to faithfully serving the public and bringing the benefits of competition to everyday people, we're thinking about just how we talk to the public, right? Antitrust for a long time was really technocratic. It was steeped in kind of murky economics. And that's really a shame, because as I've gone back and engaged with the history, it's clearer to me than ever that antitrust is for all of us. And so, for example, we are trying to make sure that we're using plain language in our complaints, in our guidance documents. Or making sure that we're not privileging a small few who already kind of know what's going on at the Antitrust Division and down at the Federal Trade Commission, which is our sister agency, and that we're setting up access for everyday people to get the information that they need. And so we go out and talk to as many people as we possibly can. I'll give you just one example. We spoke to a group of farmers that were coming to Washington for the day, just to talk about how we think about competition in agriculture. And we're going out to colleges and universities. We're going out to conferences. We're talking to content creators. We're just talking to as many people as we possibly can, because we feel so deeply that antitrust is for the people. And we as public servants are obligated to protect every citizen in this country, regardless of whether you have power or whether you don't.
So can we get, because I know there's a lot of people in the chat that may not be familiar with who you are. Can we get your backstory of how you even got into the position that you're in? Because, I'm assuming you didn't grow up wanting to work in the antitrust department for the Department of Justice. Maybe you did. But what was your journey like to get to where you are? And what are some of the, the obstacles or hurdles that you may have faced or are still facing as a Black woman in your position?
Sure. So I went to college and law school not having a real sense of what I wanted to do in terms of like a legal specialty. but I spent a summer working at the United States Attorney's Office. And basically, that's the federal prosecutor's office. There's one in about 93 different federal districts in the United States. And I was really taken with the mission. I liked being the kind of federal prosecutor that protected people against the overreach of companies that really have the power to make life impossible for people, to deprive folks of economic opportunity. And then in terms of my path to public service, I was born in Sudan. I came to this country when I was 4 years old. And not long after we got here, the government dissolved in Sudan. There was a coup. There was a takeover by a regime that was brutal, and that was also deeply misogynistic. And my mother, a brilliant woman, came to this country in hopes of getting an advanced degree and pursuing academia. And so it was no longer safe for us to go home. And so we applied for asylum and were incredibly fortunate to get it. And so I feel a deep gratitude to this country for taking in my family at a time when the circumstances were not safe for us to go back. And so this is part of a debt of gratitude that I feel. And, the Attorney General in his confirmation hearing talked about how serving the public was his highest and best use. And that really resonates with me. And I think it resonates with a lot of people who work at the Justice Department. In terms of antitrust, I started working at a law firm in New York City and handled an antitrust litigation and was totally hooked. I love the idea of taking on giants. I've never liked bullies my entire life. And so fighting bullies and making sure that we are protecting people when they cannot secure their own economic liberty from corporations that have so much power is the thing that gets me up every morning. And I'm really privileged to serve in the Biden-Harris administration under this Attorney General, under this Assistant Attorney General, because there is a universal commitment to making sure that there's economic opportunity for all people and that there's market integrity above all, and that economic liberty will be part of our effort, as the Constitution says, to form and advance our more perfect union.
So let me play devil's advocate really quick. What do you say to the people who may say, well, Google is just a search engine, it's not doing any harm to anyone? And secondly, do you foresee maybe an OpenAI or NVIDIA going through this same kind of issue in a few years down the line?
So the thing about some monopolies is that they can threaten innovation and threaten opportunities in ways that you can't even conceive. For example, there are people who say that the Justice Department's monopolization lawsuit against Microsoft in the late 1990s may well have paved the way for Google and other tech companies to even take hold. Recall that the Microsoft enforcement action was about Microsoft allegedly thwarting the ability of competing browsers to offer their services on the Windows operating system. In terms of AI, what I find so interesting is that artificial intelligence is not actually new, right? Artificial intelligence just means intelligence that comes from a computer or software as opposed to humans or animals. And so we've had artificial intelligence in one form or another since probably the 1950s, right? So when you think about artificial intelligence, search engines, voice-assisted search, content recommendation like you get on Netflix, all of that is within the broader umbrella of AI. I think what is different is that in the 2010s, there were serious breakthroughs in what's called deep learning. And I think that really supercharged investment in AI and the rollout of products that I think are bringing the public into contact with AI, like ChatGPT, for example. It's important to understand what services the ChatGPTs of the world are actually offering. They're built on large language models, right? And particularly foundation models. that essentially take in massive quantities of information and data. And so it stands to reason then that the companies that are already crawling and indexing the internet, of which there are actually kind of just two, right? There's Google, and you know that because you use Google search, and then there's Microsoft, right, which offers the Bing service. Those companies are going to have a leg up in these new frontiers. And, to go back to the question about Google not really doing any harm, obviously we filed 2 lawsuits that suggest otherwise. And it would be really a shame if the high watermark of competition in artificial intelligence was actually dictated by the fact that we only have 2 search companies, for example. Imagine if we had 9 or 10 or 15 different search engines that were all competing to offer you these next frontier services. So I think that's how I think about competition and the way that markets are supposed to evolve and the real harms that flow from one company dominating a particular product or service.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about now a use case that you guys have actually fought for in terms of education. In a few months, there will be plenty of high school seniors that'll be graduating and looking to go to college. And the way it usually works is if you don't have money, you have to get financial aid. And financial aid can be something that is just kind of need-based, right? Like people will look at the income of your parents and they'll determine how much they're going to give you. And once you get one quote, it's tough to get a different one from another school. So can you elaborate on what you've done in as far as the antitrust division to kind of combat that and make a difference?
Sure. So I don't know about you guys, but I cannot think of anything I've done that is more expensive than buying a house and getting educated. To your point, college seniors are graduating. They're going to be excited about colleges that they've gotten into, and they are applying for financial aid. There used to be legislation that allowed colleges and universities to collude on the formula that they were going to use to offer financial aid, so long as they were all need blind. Now, you guys are smart, you're sophisticated, you can probably already see what the problem is, right? If every college and university already knows what the other colleges and universities are using as the formula for financial aid, there's not going to be competition to offer the best aid package to students. And in a world or in a country rather, where student loan debt is drowning young people and stifling the American dream, the ability to buy a home, the ability to maybe take on lower paying public interest jobs and so forth, is really thwarted by that kind of conduct. And I should say, in addition to the monopolization work that our antitrust laws condemn, companies can't fix prices. They can't collude by rigging bids or allocating markets. And so this is essentially collusion by another name. And so there was a lawsuit that was filed against a number of colleges and universities saying that the way they were setting these formulas actually violated the antitrust laws. And the Justice Department filed an amicus brief, which is a fancy word for a kind of friend of the court brief to try to illuminate the way the law should be applied to that particular lawsuit, and took the side of the students who were suing the universities and set out a framework for why that formula violates the antitrust laws. And I'm really pleased to say that a number of colleges and universities have actually settled with the college students. And more importantly, Congress has allowed the legislation that even allowed them to collude in the first place to sunset. And so that group, right, those fixing prices, which we call a cartel, has since been disbanded. And so going forward, colleges and universities are supposed to be competing on the financial aid that they offer young people, which is a good thing and is good news and is an example of how this administration and this Justice Department is fighting for people across the country.
The college cartel.
So the cartel,
Yep.
the cartel play.
Yeah.
So you guys, you're in an interesting position because you sue the most powerful people in the world, right? Like you have 2 lawsuits against Google. I want to ask you about that, but before, another thing, speaking of the college situation that's very near and dear to our heart, is sports, college sports in particular. And it's been a long-standing debate as far as NCAA, especially basketball and football, where the majority of players are Black American. And for a long time they wasn't able to get any compensation at all. Now they just started to be able to get paid from endorsements deal with NIL, but they still are not compensated from the schools, and there's still some level of restriction as far as the economic impact for athletes. Can you talk about that and what you guys' thoughts and plans are as far as that's concerned?
For sure. So in my time at the Antitrust Division, I have spent a long time trying to think about labor markets. And I love sports because it's just kind of labor competition applied. And so thinking about the NCAA, it is worth taking a step back because it's only recently that college athletes, and to your point, Black and brown college athletes have been able to benefit from their name, image, and likeness. And it's worth asking why, right? So for decades, the NCAA essentially set the wages that these college athletes could make from their talent and their skill at zero. And there's no industry or no sector where that kind of price setting would be tolerated. And nonetheless, the NCAA, which is the governing body for all the colleges and universities that put on sports to include Division I football and basketball, that is what they did for a long time. And so there was a private lawsuit that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I'm really proud that in early 2021, the Justice Department, on behalf of the United States, filed a brief in support of the college athletes, declaring that the Supreme Court should find the NCAA's conduct, which again was depriving these college athletes of their name, image, and likeness proceeds, and education-related expenses beyond a certain amount is illegal. And the Supreme Court decided 9-0, which means that every single Supreme Court justice agreed that what the NCAA was doing was in fact unlawful. And it paved the way for these athletes to get compensation beyond education-related expenses. Those fights are continuing, right? I suspect that we will see decisions coming out of a pending lawsuit about the ability of colleges and universities to directly pay athletes. I think those will come out of the courts in the very near term. The Justice Department, actually, the Antitrust Division just intervened and joined a lawsuit challenging the NCAA's transfer restrictions for college athletes. Recall that if you transfer a second time, the NCAA was forcing these talented athletes to sit out for a year. And it just seems hard to me to justify why they would try to chill the movement of these athletes. I think it remains to be seen where this goes, but I'm certainly observing that there are these like PACs essentially that are offering athletes compensation, recruiting incentives, and the like. And so this will be very interesting. But again, I think antitrust has something to say for all of this. And it's really remarkable that just a few years ago, the NCAA, $1 billion organization, was not sharing any of those proceeds with the college athletes that were really the center of the talent and driving the entire enterprise.
For someone who's inspired by your story and what you're doing, what are some steps that like young lawyers could take to get to where you are now for those who may not have been exposed to it as we weren't previous to talking to you tonight? For
sure. I think that the law is a noble profession. I think that lawyers can make a difference in the lives of people if you choose to pursue a career in law and public interest. Again, antitrust was really shrouded in a lot of mystery. It was not really well known even to practicing lawyers, like just how fulfilling a career it can be. And I think that's changed. I think people are very conscious of antitrust. They are thinking about antitrust in digital platforms. They're thinking about antitrust in terms of the ability of ticketing companies to charge you excessive fees. They're thinking about it in agriculture. They're thinking about it in every aspect of their life. And I would say that people can intern at the Justice Department. They can spend their summers at the Justice Department. They can apply to the honors program. You can apply to be a United States attorney. And, there are plenty of opportunities at the Justice Department to work on antitrust issues. And, I would not be dissuaded by the composition of the antitrust bar or what antitrust opportunities might have been available previously. We have a big task ahead of us. We have big obligations to the public, and it's going to take all of us. And one of the things that we like to say at the Justice Department is that we can't do our jobs effectively if we do not have a Justice Department that doesn't look like the rest of the country, right? And so it's very important for anyone who is interested to think about these issues and to consider joining us. It's also an all-you-can-eat antitrust buffet. We can teach people antitrust. We just need people who care deeply and passionately about the public and want to work hard and take on companies that are doing real harm to real people.
Doha, you said the two most expensive things that you'll do in your lifetime, and for most people in their lifetime as well, is get educated and buy a house. So I want to talk about housing for a sec. I'll read you something. Today, there is a 30% point gap between Black and white home ownership rates, wider today than it was in 1960 when explicit housing discrimination was still legal. At the same time, the average seasonal adjusted U.S. home price has increased nearly 80% from April 2015 to April 2023. So I wonder what your department is going to do or is doing to address some of these statistics.
So the way that antitrust can be brought to bear to make purchasing a home or renting your home more competitive and to bring about the benefits of competition to that process are plentiful. So let's just talk about the process of buying a home. So if you're looking at buying a house anywhere in the country, what are you going to do? You're going to go probably get on the internet. You're going to go to Zillow. You might go to Redfin. You're going to go to some website that's going to show you an inventory of houses. Well, typically the real estate agents that are listing those houses or offering to show you houses are members of real estate associations, the biggest of which I believe is the National Association of Realtors. And so these real estate agents have extraordinary power over how you buy a home. Most people don't realize that both the listing agent and your agent, when you're buying a house, actually charge a commission. Combined, that commission can be 6% of the overall price of a home, which is really extraordinary considering how expensive a home is. And it often gets tucked into the amount that your lender is going to offer in terms of a mortgage. So the picture is actually worse. In addition to being charged the commission, you're probably going to pay interest on that commission over the life of your mortgage. It is incredible that there is not competition to bring those fees down. And in fact, a jury just this past year found that real estate associations were actually conspiring to artificially inflate the commissions that they were charging people. And so that jury found that just in the state of Missouri, that homeowners had actually been artificially charged in excess of $1.8 billion. That's billion with a B, which is a ton of money. And there are similar lawsuits that are being brought all over the country. I think to me, it's shown that problems in real estate actually run deep. The Justice Department has brought enforcement actions in this space. We're filing amicus briefs, again, those friend of the court filings, to make sure that we are putting our thumb on the scale to bring the price of housing down and to make housing more affordable. I'm really moved by the statistics that you just quoted. It is not great, obviously, that there's such a 30-point gap between white and black home ownership. And while, antitrust may not solve every single problem under the sun, but it can change the structural barriers to buying a home to include conduct that artificially inflates the price of a home. And just briefly, let me also hit rent, right? Rent is extremely high. People are being priced out of housing and apartments all over the country. We are aware that there are companies that offer software that essentially sets the price of apartments for real estate developers and landlords all over the country. And they may be using competitively sensitive information. And again, through the use of those algorithms, be artificially increasing the price of rent. That is a startling problem, and we are taking it head on. The sharing of that kind of information, unsurprisingly, is called information sharing, and antitrust has something to say about that. And so we looked back at guidance that we had issued and found that our approach to information sharing was way too permissive. And so just last year, the Justice Department withdrew safe harbors for companies that wanted to share competitively sensitive information. I gave a speech down in Miami about all of our concerns around information sharing, and particularly the way that machine learning and artificial intelligence can really exacerbate asymmetries between buyers and sellers. And I think that the way that it's affected rental prices is really a glaring example of that problem.
So we were at Carnegie Hall last week, and we spoke with Robert Smith, and he brought up a point that I had heard before, whereas artificial intelligence is obviously taking over the world, but very few people are in power to actually program these artificial intelligence programs, right? And consciously or subconsciously, the artificial intelligence is getting programmed in the likeness of the person that's actually programming it, right? With their ingrained biases, with their ingrained opinions, it's just human nature. Very few Black people, very few women, very few a variety of anybody other than a certain tech group of white men are actually in position to shape how artificial intelligence thinks, which could be extremely dangerous, because if you have 3% of the 1% of the population that's programming 100% of artificial intelligence, the artificial intelligence is going to think just like the 1% of the programmers, and they're going to have, like I said, biases. So now you have artificial intelligence that's racist, that has bias based on the programming that has been done. So are you guys thinking about that? And if so, are you having any level of input, or are you looking to enforce some regulation on the programming of artificial intelligence so that it has some level of more diversity as far as the computers, the way that they're actually programmed to think?
It's a great question. So the administration has issued an executive order on artificial intelligence. There's a lot of factors and a lot of planks, but to your point, one of the most important aspects of that executive order is that AI needs to be safe, and that there needs to be testing, and that it should be free of those kinds of biases. But I think that the problem that you've just teed up, I think, goes back to why antitrust is so important. Antitrust is about the dispersion of economic opportunity. It's about removing structural barriers to economic opportunity. And the very fact that a small number of people, whoever they are, can control the market experiences of potentially hundreds of millions of Americans and people globally is just like right on the nose about what antitrust is intended to enforce. And so to me, it sets up a choice between two paradigms. One is trying to fix flawed inputs, trying to make sure that data sets and the objective function of some of these algorithms is doesn't offend law and policy for good reason. And there's some people who favor that. As an antitrust enforcer, I'm thinking about the entire power problem. And so to me, I would not want one company, a small number of companies, to have such outsized power. And so I favor structural approaches, which is to say, making sure that there isn't that kind of power in the first instance over AI. And again, that is consistent with the anti-monopoly tradition in this country and the spirit of the antitrust laws, right? Like our first antitrust law is called the Sherman Act, and Senator John Sherman makes these impassioned pleas on the floor of the Senate in 1890. And he says that this stuff is antithetical to our form of government, that if we wouldn't endure an emperor, we shouldn't endure the autocrats of trade. And I think that that's really resonant now, right? Like we think about the dominance of these companies and how four men, maybe a few others are, again, having outsized control of every aspect of American life. And I don't believe it can be justified on legal antitrust grounds or just basic notions of the foundations of our democracy.
Any thoughts on what could be done to help Black-owned banks close the gap between how many of us are doing business with them versus their counterparts like JP Morgan, Bank of America, et cetera?
Sure. So banks are special financial institutions, and there's actually a long history of how antitrust has been concerned about the financiers in consolidating important industries. At the antitrust division, we're thinking about bank merger policy because we know that 49% of all Black households in America are actually underbanked, compared to just 15% of white Americans. And those statistics are according to the Federal Reserve. And Black Americans are looking to costlier and often predatory alternatives to banking institutions. And so the other problem is that when there's a lot of consolidation of banks, they become less sensitive to the needs of communities, which ultimately affects the wealth of communities. And so we're rethinking our bank merger guidelines to be more lucid to all of the ways that bank merger consolidation can really harm communities when they are further and further away from communities. I should also say that there's a huge role of other federal agencies, to include the Federal Reserve, the CFPB, the OCC, and others who are tasked with thinking about all of the non-antitrust and all of the non-competition reasons to either permit bank mergers or not. And one of those important factors is convenience and need factors. And so I suspect that they will be more focused on the needs of communities because the consequences can really have awful knock-on effects for Black business formation, Black home ownership, and it's not just Black people, right? There's, really harrowing accounts of how bank consolidation has hurt folks all across the country and how mergers have really hollowed out the middle of the country, which has a number of social, political, and economic consequences, for all of us and for the health of our democracy.
Yeah, the banking numbers, the statistics are pretty alarming. The 6 largest banks companies have amassed as many assets as all other bank holding companies combined. I mean, these numbers are pretty startling. There's one last statistic I want to read you here. The One United, the largest Black-owned bank in the U.S., manages $625 million in assets. In comparison, Bank of America manages nearly $2.5 trillion. And so those numbers are pretty staggering when we talk about monopoly. It feels right when we saw what happened with regional banks. Yeah. We saw what happened with minority-owned banks as they continue to consolidate. That gap will widen even further. I want to go back to something that Shadi was talking about when we talk about artificial intelligence. I wonder how you guys are approaching this in terms of the job market. When we talk about working wage, when we talk about workers, there's a fear from people that jobs will be replaced and automation will become at the forefront of the new job movement. A lot of those jobs are probably be taken, are manned by people that look like us right now. And so how are we looking at this from an anti-competitive standpoint?
There's an entire body of research on the failures of competition in labor markets that if we had another 5 hours to talk about, I would love to take you through all of it. On the AI example in particular, I think that there are already realized fears of how artificial intelligence can make the conditions of work or the availability of work more tenuous. It is a fact that technological innovation can wipe out a number of jobs. Sometimes that's for reasons having nothing to do with violations of law, to include the antitrust laws. But other times when there are really stark asymmetries of power between employers and their workers, there's good reason to think about whether there's a competition problem in the market. I recently read, and I won't name the company, but I recently read that one of the sharing economy companies is thinking about using AI to figure out what wages or fares to offer workers. And that struck me as remarkably concerning, if not dystopian. It is worth thinking more about whether there are failures of competition or market structures that allow them to do that. But the fact is, some people are very desperate. And if your prior willingness to take extremely low wages essentially means that companies are going to offer you more of that, that is a reason to be concerned. And so we are taking all of this information in at the Justice Department. We're thinking deeply about it. And if we believe that the facts in the law warrant law enforcement on those issues, we will not hesitate to do so.
So, well, we want to thank you for your time. But before you leave, I just have one last question as far as Google. Suing a company like Google, right? You guys, it's an interesting dynamic because Google is one of the most powerful companies in the world, but the United States government is the most powerful government in the world, right? So just what goes into that? Because that's like two heavyweight fighters fighting each other, right? Like how much work, how many people is on that case? How much, interns, like, when you're suing a company like Google, can you just kind of walk us through, like, what does that actually look like as far as like preparation, months, and going to trial and everything like that?
So it's a great question. Every law enforcement decision is often undertaken after careful investigation, after careful inspection of the facts, and thinking about how the facts map onto law. It is a fact of life that the most deep-pocketed, well-resourced companies in the world bring resources to these fights that can dwarf the entire budget of the Antitrust Division. And, in case your readers are curious, the entire budget of the Antitrust Division is just $225 million a year. And we actually have fewer people today than we did in 1979. And obviously the economy is much bigger and it's gotten more complex. There are ways in which big companies try to intimidate enforcers, try to thwart our actions. But, if that's the experience that we are having, imagine what an ordinary person goes through trying to hold companies, especially big and well-resourced companies, to account for violations of law or in order to protect their economic liberty. Big fights require big investments of resources, and we feel that we don't have infinite resources. And so often it means that we have to pick the most worthwhile fights that can help the most people and that can bring the most benefit to the overall economy. But we're always mindful of the special role of the Justice Department and bringing on those fights.
So you guys have less people than you had in 1978 or something like that. You said
1979.
Is that because powerful corporations are purposely putting political pressure to weaken you guys' authority?
That is my favorite question of the night. There are multiple reasons why the antitrust enforcement resources have shrunk. But the most obvious is that starting in the 1980s or so, during the administration of Ronald Reagan, there was a conscious effort to pull back on antitrust enforcement. There was a belief that markets are self-correcting, that most monopolies were actually harmless, that most mergers were actually harmless. And I think what we've seen is that has been a failed experiment, and that we were too permissive of sort of leaning on markets to correct problems. It is also true, and Professor Tim Wu at Columbia has written prolifically about these issues, that companies that get bigger also have hefty lobbying budgets and can advocate for their interests, shall we say, in agencies and forums that really matter. A few years ago, there were efforts to really legislate to take on the power of big tech companies, and the lobbying dollars that went to that effort, I think, were outstripped only by the Georgia senatorial elections in 2021. And that should tell you something, right? That should tell you about the power of antitrust to really open up markets and open up opportunities, and the way that threatens well-resourced companies that are able to generate staggering profits, sometimes through anti-competitive conduct that violates the antitrust laws.
Well, Doha, we thank you.
There you have it, ladies
We
and
thank
gentlemen.
you. And we appreciate you sharing your intelligence and your level of expertise, and making us all aware to a topic that we're not too familiar with. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate the Muhammad Ali pictures in the background. Very good touch.
Thank you very much. It's a source of inspiration every day. So thank you for everything you guys do as well, and for making your audience more aware of law and policy and political issues that really matter. You're doing a service to the public.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And EYL is too big to fail, but hopefully we never end up on the Department of Justice Antitrust.
Please.
Hopefully we never have to come in contact with you guys.
Please.
That would be
it was if you ever see those 3 letters, just know it was a typo.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it gives a new meaning to you guys want big government? Like when she was giving that explanation, I'm in my head, I'm thinking, like, you hear that rhetoric all the time. And then these are the ramifications. Like, well, there's less people now to investigate things that could actually help the public. So that was great information. For sure.
The whole point of the platform is to bring different people on that you may not have been exposed to, talk about different topics. Last week we brought on a gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce. We brought somebody from the Department of Justice. Never again will you probably ever be exposed to this level of exposure. It's extremely important to take it in the moment.
Yeah.
Because it's a variety of different things. You have the information part, that's one thing, but then also it opens up a variety of different aspirations for people to aspire to, right? So now you look at somebody that's in the Department of Justice as a lawyer, and it's like, okay, maybe that's a career path that I want for myself, or I want for my children. You see somebody that's in a Chamber of Commerce, you didn't really even know about the Chamber of Commerce, right? It's like, okay, maybe that's something. He's talking about international business, right? We interview the AI engineer, and he's talking about artificial intelligence as far as computer programming, right? So it opens up a different level of exposure to it, and I think that's something that definitely cannot be looked over, because I've never seen it happen before. Yeah. So it's just important to kind of keep that in mind, for sure.
Also, if you listen to the information, if they have fewer employees now, than they did in 1979. I think we can say like NVIDIA and Google to the moon. They're going to pay their little fine, and they're going to say, hey, I'm going to correct our behavior. It won't happen again. And they're going to go on about business. Like the lobbying power that you was alluding to, they've essentially finagled, take the tone down, right? Finagled their way into a non-monopolistic environment that is truly a monopoly. And even with Apple and Google, I'll say it all the time, like, technically, they're friendly enough to be considered a monopoly, but if you keep them separate, they're not. If we do business together and I give you 10 billion, then you give me 15 billion back, like,
and we'll pay the $1 billion fine that was worth doing business. It's interesting, but I think another part, and Shah, you kind of allude to it, is that the access to these people, like, is almost impossible, right? Like, and this is why it's important when we talk about being everywhere and showing up everywhere and making sure that you make your way around the room. These are the reasons why, because you never know who's in the room. Like, you could walk into somebody from the Department of Antitrust or the Chamber of Commerce, and you wouldn't know it, right? If you didn't actually go in the room. And most people are looking for, all right, there's a celebrity. But I mean, how beneficial is that going to be to the overall public or the overall information that you're trying to learn? So it's important to make sure that you treat everybody with the same integrity and look at everybody as an opportunity to learn.
For sure. And protect us.
Please.
Nah, real talk.
I laugh because I laugh to hide the pain
on a few different levels. Because it's dangerous. So you got to protect us from the haters. You got to protect us from the higher ups. You got to protect us from a variety of different things. We need your protection.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that's not happy about this platform, for a variety of different reasons. Like I said, you're educating people, you bringing different people on, you changing the way that people think. You got Black investors as the number one group of new investors. Everybody's not happy about that.
Yeah. Somebody asked me, what's the price for liberation?
And
I had to sit with that.
And everybody that's not happy about it, it's not a race thing, because there's a lot of Black people that's not happy about it either.
Right.
We talked about the self-hate thing a long time ago. So it's Black and white devils. New levels, new devils.
Yeah. We had a conversation maybe in September with a good friend of ours, and he was saying, look, you're liberating people. You got to understand the magnitude and the weight of that. Everybody's not happy about that, and everybody doesn't champion that. So we have to protect you at all costs. And that when I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, he's right. He's right. But the audience needs to understand it as well. Like, we're going to do everything on our part to make sure that we're obviously in the safest environments as possible, so we can continue to deliver the information. But the audience has to have that shield around us as well.
I mean, then I'll come in and say, fly yourself out, and then kick your horn and snatch. You know what I mean? So some of our stupidity caused this. Shout to Vanguard for all the protection. I love you so much. BlackRock, JP Morgan, I continue to need you and love you dearly. If I made you money, please put yes in chat, and put hashtag invest in yourself in chat too.
And that's the good thing too. We give you great diversity. We give you great diversity between Earn Your Leisure. We interview entrepreneurs and go through their back story, and then Market Mondays is an appropriate family show. Yep. And Blackout is for that blackout hour, man. Like, a lot of people were saying, like, damn, like, can we get back to the financial topics? Look, we talk about financial topics all the time.
Gave you AMD, NVIDIA, QQQ, Franklin Templeton, episode 70 classic, should have went triple. What are we talking about?
That's the mindset of, like, let me box you into what I think all you know. Like, there's plenty of other opinions. Like, I'm glad we got to do something yesterday with basketball. They were like, I never saw Shotty that excited ever, right? But, he's grew up playing this sport that he loves. And so anytime he's involved in it, and anytime I'm going to be around sports, there's genuine joy just being around it. Yeah, we love talking about business. We've done that for all our lives, and for the past 5 years, we share that with the world. We love talking about investing. We've done that and coming up on 4 years, which is incredible. 4 years of doing that. Can we talk about some other things too?
Really quick, even that conversation, that's a financial management conversation
for sure
that you don't know until
for sure
you actually get there.
That's for sure. It's all related, but it's like, I think we're the most versatile. We could talk to, a lawyer, a politician. We could talk to a rapper. We can talk to
what they say. What's the consensus amongst everyone?
Oh yeah, everybody likes us.
We good wherever we at. Wherever we at, we good.
Most versatile award goes to. But don't worry, Blackout is not. Blackout shouldn't be played in front of children. That's why it's at 10 o'clock at night.
Or if you want to teach your kids something in advance, go through the hardships other people may have gone through. Let them tune in. Let them
this
tune in.
content is not for children.
Hey,
But
Mike,
Market Mondays is. Market Mondays
Mike,
is.
we got to put that at the bottom of the lower third. The rating.
We go from Disney to Cinemax in one day.
To day trading at night.
That's what I'm saying. Skinemax.
And part of this Button fault. Shout out to Button and Ish. Last year, he got in this little 1-2. I want to see you do more. Here I am. Closer than ever. Ta-da. Shout out to the guys, though. You want to talk about a topic or tell them one topic we'll be talking about tomorrow?
On Blackout?
Yeah. Or should we wait? Well, let's wait.
No.
Tune in later.
We're, from a production standpoint, we're going to wait.
Gotcha.
All right. He was thinking too long.
Well, I'm gonna say it, but
No.
I don't want to lose.
Let him tune in.
I don't want to lose sponsorship.
Let's stay here.
So let's talk about Bitcoin. Through the roof. Bitcoin, the unstoppable Bitcoin is fastly approaching all-time highs. It's at 51,600 right now. I think the all-time high was like 60,000.
I think that's 65. Yep.
So it's headed towards that. It's been, it broke 50,000 last week. That was the first time in like 3 years that it broke 50,000. The unstoppable Bitcoin, man. Every time it gets counted out, it keeps going. So we talk about Bitcoin halving. We talk about the ETF situation. So with this streak of weekly gains that puts the record in sight, what's the thought on Bitcoin, and will the record be broken this year?
They said 69,000 was the record, so 69,000.
I believe by middle of April, the all-time high should be broken. I'm looking at it right now, like record inflows, 2.4 billion weekly inflows are coming in. That 69,000 price is really key. Shout out to everyone. When I called out 28,000, 20,000, I know I get vilified on the internet, but I did say that. And Mike Novogratz did say, your boy know what he's talking about. So I think by mid-April, we should get past 69, going to 70. After that, we should have a nice little pullback, maybe 10%, if you will. And then I think we'll be great for the rest of the year. But by mid-April, I think we should break that previous all-time high.
So I'll do a quick follow-up with that. So if we're saying it's going to get there in the next, I guess, month and a half, 2 months, what does it say for the crypto economy in terms of the stocks, right? What does that look like for MicroStrategy? What does it look like for the ETF? We just saw a Coinbase report. They had a great
Coinbase going to be Brian. You're a hell of a CEO.
So more of the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll be great. Michael Saylor, he'll be back on Lex Friedman, printing more money than ever. So as a result, Bitcoin is the market maker, the S&P of the crypto space. So as they continue to go higher, they'll be okay, and everything will be drug up as a result. Yeah,
we saw, and for those who didn't see, the Coinbase is reporting that fourth quarter where we saw Bitcoin started to edge up to hit 30, hit 35, and then it kind of sat there, went to 40. Now it's at 50. So we're anticipating the first quarter. If it gets to these numbers, obviously Coinbase will have another strong quarter as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the boy Jeff Bezos. They recently sold $2 billion of Amazon stock, and that's his third time he sold stock this month. And before that, he hadn't sold stock for a while, especially nothing on that size, like in years. And a lot of other people are selling their stocks. So you always want to sell at a high. And I'll never forget Litecoin. Remember Litecoin? So this is how I knew that.
Charlie Lee?
I knew. Shout out to Charlie Lee. He's a legend. I knew we were screwed, and I knew we were screwed with this when Charlie Lee, the founder of Litecoin, Litecoin was going up crazy, and he sold all of his Litecoin. Like he sold everything, and
smart move, low key.
Moved to Thailand or whatever he did.
Put it on Twitter.
And then it kept, and then after that, it went up. And everybody was like, damn, that was a stupid decision. Why would you sell it? And it went up. And then after that, it just completely crashed, and it's never reached that level ever since. So yeah. Now, Jeff Bezos didn't sell everything, obviously.
No.
But whenever a founder sells shares, billions of dollars worth of shares, it's alarming to people, especially the average everyday investor. and it does it signal that it's time to skate. It's been real, and get your profits and wait it out.
Not always necessarily. I said that before. When you start to see things like that, CEOs and execs selling shares, when you start to see job layoffs, they're cutting back to make sure that the bottom line is profitable, the margins are bigger. In this case, I think, though, it might be a liquidation event to fund something else.
Yep.
We already have seen what he wants to do with space exploration. Shada, you and I have been plenty of part of.
Where the hell is Charlie Lee at?
What?
In Thailand, enjoying his wife.
They-
He sold
we-
at the top and got
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Why would the real move?
That's a smart man.
is
Let
to
me just
liquidate-
finish. Let me
Go
just finish
ahead.
this before he just throws this radar.
Go ahead.
But we've had plenty of conversations about space exploration and where that's headed, and we know what they're doing with Blue Origin. So I think the liquidation event is to now fund, because most people think, oh, he's worth 121 billion. No, he doesn't have 121 billion, right? He has shares in his company, which have amassed nearly almost $2 trillion. So to have a liquidation event to now fund something else, or maybe invest in something else, I think that's what this is. But go ahead, y'all can talk about y'all.
People forget that before he founded Amazon, Jeff Bezos did work. What? Worked for a hedge fund.
Mhm.
People forgot that he's a great trader. So Mackenzie's former wife's a great trader, right? She got in with him at the low, rode it to the high, liquidated. Great move. He used to want to go to space until he went through and found Lauren. There's no reason to go to Mars if he on a yacht. You see the boat pulling the yacht.
The guy's impressive.
So making that move to Miami,
The islands, right? He just bought, was it 149 million?
the other island boy.
Yeah.
So my thing is, like, this is incredibly well timed. He hadn't liquidated. He's living life. He's moving to Miami. I think that part of this is a liquidation event to build something. I'm not sure if it is space, but if you had a $6 billion slush fund just sitting around that you wanted to liquidate, and you put your all into a business for 20 or 30 years, wouldn't you to capitalize on it? I'm still happy about Amazon, long Amazon. That won't change. It's one of the top picks in Stock Club, has been for years. I mean, but it's almost at the all-time high. He is selling at the place where he should.
Yeah, think about
That's
that. A $6 billion transaction. What's the percentage of his net worth? Less than 5%? I mean, wouldn't you?
Not bad.
Wouldn't you?
Continue to be on vacation. The world tour inside of the world tour. We're gonna talk Wednesday. The world tour inside of the world, and plus, I'm sure the new love of his life is maybe add some influence to live up a little bit.
Likes nice things.
Hit the like button and share. We are at the final stretch, but we are not done yet. Semiconductors. We talk about semiconductors a lot, and we talk about AMD. We talk about NVIDIA, but there are other semiconductors out there. So what are the best value? I don't like the word cheap, because I think that cheap has a certain connotation to it. I'm a value shopper. I'm not a cheap bargain shopper. I don't want to buy cheap clothes. I want to buy clothes that can be priced well.
Gotcha.
But I don't want to go to Target. I'm not buying my whole outfit in Target.
You know dudes that do that? No, you know people do that?
Yeah.
He didn't know. He didn't know.
No disrespect to
Nah,
anybody
I mean,
that's
not
shopping
that
at
he
Target.
might be getting off.
All right, Target might have not been the best example. Let's use Walmart. As a better example.
Sam's Club.
Pay less.
Sam's Club.
No, pay less.
Does that? I don't even know if that exists anymore.
Pay
It
less.
does? I thought they went bankrupt.
I never got anything from Payless.
Penny loafers.
No, I never had penny loafers.
Never in your life? I had penny loafers.
No,
Michael Jackson, bad penny loafers.
That's an 82 thing.
we ain't doing the penny loafers.
I'm sure there's a picture with you with penny loafers. I'll make some close.
Absolutely not.
Mom, send a picture.
I'll make some
please.
calls.
Yeah.
They watch it right now. They probably gonna send it to me.
So what are some value, less expensive, higher end semiconductor stocks that people might not be aware of that still could potentially be reasonable for their budget?
So one is Magna Chip Semiconductor. First, I must say NVIDIA and AMD are the two that I love. This is just a list to put on your watch list. I don't love many out of this list. But Magnachip Semiconductor, ticker MX, is 1. Himax Technology, ticker HIMX, is number 2. ASEW Technology, ticker ASX. Number 4 is Arteris, ticker AIP. And NVIDIA Semiconductor, NVTS. I like ASX potentially, but I know you don't want to call them cheap. I'm gonna call them cheap semiconductors. It was almost as trash as that NBA All-Star game last night. Like, cool, good effort, but I need to see more. Some of these are priced under $50, some are under 20. I wouldn't buy any of these today. If you missed out on ARM, if you missed out on NVIDIA, AMD, you may have to wait. You have to still make sure that the CEO is going to do a great job in these companies that have not been done. But ASX, out of these, I would probably look to trade. But if you feel like NVIDIA is too high, almost at 800, AMD is run up too much, put these on a watch list. And if you see something in the reports or research that makes you like it, maybe you can invest into it later.
They want to know about SMCI. I know it was on our
talked about it.
It was on our notes last week. I don't think we got to it, and then they reported, and then we saw a pullback. They dropped 20%, but the run up has been ridiculous.
Insane.
I mean,
at a 20% pullback, you should love it. If you loved it the week before,
right? I'm gonna add one, and just because it just happened tonight, and I spoke about Global Foundries before as we were talking. This actually came through the board. So Global Foundries, ticker GFS. The U.S. government has awarded them $1.5 billion. To subsidize semiconductor production here in America. It's the first major award from the $39 billion fund approved by Congress in 2022 to bolster domestic chip production. And so if we're talking about having chips here, we talked about the supply chain issues that we had during the pandemic. This is the first company that's been awarded for the federal government, $1.5 billion. So the foundries will be built here in New York, and there'll be one in Vermont as well. I think the average revenue that it's supposed to bring the state is somewhere between 10 to 12 billion. I mean, so this is a good one.
I like it, maybe like at around $45. Speaking of value, and before I swear after this I'm done. Can we talk about Mark Zuckerberg saying that the Oculus 3 is a better value than the Vision Pro? We don't have to.
I understand why he did it. I spoke to the people at Meta, our good friends over at Meta, and I said that to be fair to them, if they send us the Quest, I will use it. I will test the product, and I will give them the same amount of attention for a review, and so people can make their own judgment on it.
Here's some game for you.
There's one last thing, because the Vision Pro, again, I tested something new. I'm not sure if you saw it, but they have this app where you can actually go inside of the medical field, and you can actually study the human body, learn surgery, but actually like be interactive with it. I'll send a video. I'll put it in the chat or something like that. Incredible.
Here's some game for you. Anytime you guys say somebody else's name, you already lost the battle.
Big facts.
Diss me and you never get a reply for it. So that's some game for you out there. And obviously everybody knows how I feel about Meta. I love Meta. I love Instagram. But anytime you got to say somebody else's name, you lost the battle already, or you're already losing the battle. Yeah. Apple doesn't have to say anybody's name. They don't got to go. Tim Cook doesn't have to make an Instagram post saying how his product is superior to Apple. It's not going to happen. It's really not. So for Mark Zuckerberg to do that, that shows me that he's in fear of Apple. He knows that he's losing the battle when it comes to that. And that to me was kind of a desperation play.
The momentum is there. We didn't the initial estimate for the Vision Pro was 240,000 units in the first quarter of its debut. I think they're at over 750,000. I mean, they're just blowing the sales out the roof. So I can only imagine what the rest of the year will look like as they add more apps to it, as they add more innovation to it.
Shout out to Jube Ivy for the 99-cent super chat. Appreciate you, so
love.
Appreciate you.
Yes.
Appreciate you. $1 a day. That's always been the goal, man.
That's
if you could just do $1 a day.
One fan a day, $1 a day. Shout out to Nori.
$1 a day.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Ameriprise Financial, CRH, both got rated as 2 stocks to buy by Morgan Stanley. Do you agree with this?
You touching those?
Yeah. I gotta quit pissing off every industry, so I'm gonna be kind to this one. Shout out to everyone at Ameriprise Financial. I'm not that really big on financial services long term. I know Capital One acquired Discover. Capital One is
35 billion.
Yes, I like them. CRH, I do like. It's at an all-time high of 77.59. Great. Maybe if it pulls back to 60, I would get it there. Capital One I like, but Ameriprise I do not like as much. Financial services companies I do not love because they don't give the best return overall. So I won't disagree completely with the guy from Morgan Stanley, but I would not look to put Ameriprise because I think there's a bunch of competitors, JP Morgan, BlackRock. Like you literally have to ask in a second who's best.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want fifth best. I don't want the eighth best person to fly this stuff out. I want the best. You know what I mean? Put on your Vision Pro. We can go to Bahamas or wherever. Right?
Completely immersive.
Yes. But put this in chat. When I'm investing in stocks, I want the best of breed. You don't want the ninth best. Like, so kudos to Ameriprise Financial. They were great in 2005 and 2007, but I wouldn't want to invest in them right now.
Not touching it. Not touching. I'm with you.
Good.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's talk about shorting. Let's talk about
Let's do it.
puts.
Yeah.
If you have to put puts, this is when you short the market. This is when you are betting that a stock is going to go down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some shorts. Some shorts, shall we? For all you gamblers out there.
Trading has considerable risk.
Not gambling.
Please consult your advisor. It's not gambling.
Gambling
Right.
requires hope. Investing requires
Skill.
certainty and skill.
Yes. So number one,
Yes.
let's go with Intel. Would you short Intel at this time, or would you?
At this time, I'm. Let's go through the list. Read the list, and I'll just tell you the ones I'm shorting.
Okay,
All
got
right,
it.
let's do that.
Let's do Southwest, Intel, Footlocker, Coursera, and I'm gonna throw a bonus one in Nike.
Good. I'm glad you said Nike because it's part of my answer for Footlocker. Yes, I was short Footlocker. If you looked at the news last week about Nike and the CEO, which was very honest of him, and it was brutally honest. He said, "We are lacking innovation." The same day, 2,500 people were fired.
Ladies, it's like when your man gets caught cheating, and then he got to be like, "Yeah, baby, I just did it. Let me just
Yeah,
go ahead and get the clearing out." When the CEOs come out and be just honest,
yeah,
things are messed up in the organization.
and this is one of those things. And somebody had asked us the other day about the art of investing. Is it an art or is there a science? And I said, Shadi's more of the art, where it's like a sense, right? I can feel. If you look at Nike and what they've been doing from product standpoint,
Yeah.
it has been retro. Not as much as innovation when it comes to its core athletes and its core products. Now, why does that affect Footlocker? Well, 70% of their products come from Nike, and so if Nike has a pullback, what happens to Footlocker? It's
You
just
can
it's
get pummeled.
you're getting pummeled, right? And in fact, how many people are still going into store? How many people are still buying product? So when you take those things into account,
Say you getting pummeled.
you pausing me? I said
Oh,
Nike's
that's
getting
crazy.
pummeled.
Wow.
That's
This guy. Now he trying to get me
Hold on,
back.
I said it, you said it. Hold on.
He's trying to get me back from yesterday. He's trying to get me back from you. Like he's trying to get me back from yesterday. We're not gonna let it fly. No. Not gonna let it fly. Because I caught him. No, I caught him yesterday. I caught him. I'm not gonna share privately. I shared a conversation. That was foul that you tried to
and the
do. That.
Nike slides.
It was worse. I said they. As I continue. All right. So Coursera, and this is a valuable lesson. The online education space, in terms of companies that are on the market, look at how they performed since post-pandemic.
Yeah.
So pandemic, we saw a run up. We saw the Chegs of the world. We saw the 2Us of the world have a run up. Since the pandemic has ended, or I guess during that time as well, people are back outside. Education has gone back to its normal standards. The new standard of how it's being formatted. Those companies have plummeted it.
Yeah.
What would be the difference from Coursera? I don't see a competitive advantage. I don't see a mode. I see that industry is going down. So if the trend is going that way, this would be a company, again, I would put on the put list. So Footlocker, I'm putting on the put list. Coursera, I'm putting on the put list. Intel, if we're talking about this quarter, and I know they're part of this $39 billion infrastructure chip bill, We'll see how they play in that. But if I'm looking at the quarter and I'm looking at who's innovating in that space, they're not in the top 5. And so I probably would put a put there. And South by Southwest, I think we spoke about this last week in terms of the airlines and the space overall. Will they need a bailout? And so for all the reasons we spoke about last week, I'm putting all 4 of them on the put list.
At what price point are you exiting the pummeling? The people want to know. Put hashtag pummel. Put it in chat.
Yo, y'all foul. That's what y'all doing.
These are just jokes.
I let you in my home, and this is what you do.
I know. I'm My bad. These are just jokes written by 85 South. Young Fly, Andrew Schultz, and Chico Bean.
Yo,
if I made you money, please put yes. And you said something wild too the other week too. Eh?
I did.
With the Apple Vision Pro, didn't we?
Oh no, but you paused me, and
Okay.
I said,
wow.
Can you repeat what you said yesterday, or would you just like to leave that between us?
Come on, content over everything. Come on.
All right.
Come on.
It was in context. It was nothing.
We'll just say it out of context then. Let's see how it sounds.
You can't say anything out of context.
You can. Would you like to? Or I'll leave.
You want to paraphrase?
No, I'll take the pause moment tonight.
You're a good friend.
It'll be mine.
Got you.
Yo, why y'all putting pounds on pump?
Hashtag
Yo, who is that? They getting blocked. Miguel, you getting blocked, man.
Hey,
Why y'all treat me like
these are just jokes.
Oh man! All right. Before we wrap this, Capital One, big news. So Capital One, is the deal done, or are they?
They bought it. I think it was all.
They purchased Discover.
Discover card. Yep.
Capital One purchased Discover. Okay. This is interesting. This actually, which we talked about with Doha, as far as the Department of Justice, right? And looking at, too big to fail and stuff like that.
Yep.
So
that lobbying team.
for sure. So Capital One acquiring Discover Card. Do you think that this is a good merger? And can we benefit from the situation at all?
I think it's a good acquisition for them in the interim. I'm not super excited about it. I know people were acting like this is like Apple buying Microsoft or something, but I think for the customer acquisition part, it's going to be pretty good. I like Capital One stock in the financial space. This will help that it does shrink some competitive threats, if you will, if you're looking down the line. But on a scale of 1 to 10, this may be like a 5.5 or a 6. Great move for Capital One as regional banks are failing to absorb a competitor, but I'm not like elated as it's like the greatest merger or acquisition I've ever seen. So I'll give it a B or B minus in terms of acquisitions overall. But if you're not in Capital One, don't worry about it. But if you have been in the stock for a while, you should start to look to exit maybe in like 2 or 3 years as a result and make some money from your position.
Let's talk about one thing. We did an episode last week that was a brilliant episode. And it was one of these things that when we talked to Shauna Brown Duckett, who is the CEO of TIA Craft, we put a clip that got a lot of traction. About 48% of young people are not invested into their 401k. And the clip got a lot of reaction online. And then a lot of people was saying, well, the reason why we don't invest in our 401k is because it's a scam. And the 401k only gives you, 3% a year. We could do better in the stock market. We don't need to invest in the 401k, a variety of different things. And then we actually ran into her this weekend and we had a conversation about it. So I thought that it was interesting, but, I do think that it is important to have some level of responsible conversation about a 401k, being that I used to be a financial advisor. So, you might be disappointed as I am a radical person, but I'm also a responsible person. So it's my duty.
So I got to be the devil in this conversation.
Yeah,
I got
sure.
you.
It's my duty to add some level of responsibility to this. Okay, where do I start? 401k is not a scam. It's not a scam.
Does it under-deliver on the return on investment that a person should receive by investing in it?
Well, that's the thing, right? 401k it's not like a one size fit all. There's a variety of different 401k. So depending on who your 401k provider is, you usually have anywhere from 6 to I've seen up to 100. That's on the rare side. Anywhere from 6 to 25, 30 different options of how you choose to invest your 401k. You have different options of how you choose to invest your 401k. So there's not like a set thing of like you're only going to get 3%. Now you usually cannot have a self-directed 401k. Sometimes you can, but very rarely can you have a self-directed 401k. So you can't invest in like Apple stock. You can't invest in Microsoft, but you can invest in the S&P 500. You can invest in different, a growth fund, an international fund. And we talk about investing in funds is actually a better way to go about stock market investing than investing in. But look, outside of that, I've made money in 401ks. Like I said, I was an advisor. I've seen people with $2 million, $3 million in their 401ks. It's not a scam. You can make a lot of money in your 401ks. It's a form of investing. It is great to lower your tax liability, right? And if you're a business owner, you could put even more money into the 401k plan. So it lowers your tax liability, so you save money on taxes. Now you get taxed when you take the money out. But if you have a Roth 401k, there's a Roth 401k just like there's a Roth IRA. The Roth 401k allows you to put money in. You don't get tax savings, but it's tax free when you take the money out, just like a Roth IRA would be. But it allows you to put more money in than a regular IRA would be. So it's extremely important to diversify, guys. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but there's nothing wrong with saving for your retirement. Retirement's not that far away. The age 59 and a half is not that old. Like, it's crazy. I still look 17, and
You feel 17, right? But it's not that far off.
but I'm almost 40
yeah.
next week. No, I'm almost 40. So
He's not claiming the check.
I mean, I'm not 40. I'm
Gotcha.
40 next week. So I say that to say 40 years happen pretty quickly.
Mhm.
So before you know it, God willing, I'll be 60 pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to be too long before I'm 60 years old. So I think it's important to save for your retirement. The 401k does provide you a vehicle. And if your company matches, that's even better because that's even free. That's free money. So, it's like I said, should you put every single dollar that you have into your 401k? No, that's not advisable. You can do other things. You could be more risky. You could have, different allocations, but I do think that it's important to save for your future. And most people don't have retirement savings. So when you get to that point in time, you're faced with limited options if you haven't planned earlier in your life. So guys, it's not a scam, guys. It's not a scam. Take advantage of it. Now, stay on top of it. Make sure that you are invested the right way. I talk about target date funds. I like target date funds. It changes and becomes more aggressive as you get close to that target date. Like if it's like a 2050 or 2060 fund, it goes off for the year that you're planning on retire. Like I said, you can usually invest in like an S&P 500. You could usually invest in, international growth stocks, small, mid cap. And it gives you a variety of different options. So you want to kind of look through it or maybe sit with an advisor to kind of help you go through it. But be mindful. Be mindful. Don't go with just something that you heard and you're not fully aware of what you're actually doing.
Yeah, I think the broader point, people are frustrated with the return that they're receiving, but this is why this show was created. So continue to invest on your own, pour into your 401k, like you said. And the way inflation is going now, you're probably going to need to double down these next 5 years on investing in your own personal accounts. Seeing what the cost of mortgages are now, the cost of rent is now. Even Nike, like I remember when Nike were the luxury shoe brand, they're almost a value shoe. Nike, y'all need to call Kanye and Don C. Shout out to the Midwest. Y'all ran the Don C retro play into the ground. Revenue's dry. Mark Parker.
Shout out to Don C. We saw him this weekend.
Yeah, like call Don. Don may have some ideas for you. But if you want better returns, you have to remember this. Nobody's going to care about the return on investment that you receive or how much money you accumulate in your life, but you.
And also, so I'm reading comments. So you should definitely roll over your 401k if you leave your job. to an IRA. That's beneficial.
Yep.
You should, the 401k is for for-profit organizations, or 403b is for nonprofit organizations, but they're very similar. They have similar type of options available to you. So if you're a teacher or if you work in a hospital, you might have a 403b, or you might have a tax deferred annuity, a TDA. But they're all kind of very similar to each other. As far as what you said, somebody said, what about the fees involved? I mean, there's fees for sure. It's managed money though, but the fees is not. It's not going to be 20%. Hedge funds charge 20%.
Yeah, ridiculous.
To get, you could have watched Market Mondays and made more money than what a hedge fund would charge you, and the hedge fund charging you 20% of profits. So, I mean, there's no free lunch, but I mean, I think we're arguing over something that's not really, in the grand scheme of things. If you're looking at a 75 basis points, that's a 75% of 1%. Is that going to make or break the situation? Probably not.
They said Knight need to call Trump. The Trump ones.
Y'all going about it? Them,
that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Trump ones.
Okay.
We will talk about the Trump ones on Blackout.
They're calling them out of air treasons.
We will talk about.
That boy got to pay that fine.
Some air treasons.
Let's give him one topic that might be a Blackout topic that we could talk about here. Single women own more homes than single men. And this is something that's been floating around the internet for a while. I saw like Kiana Watson posted and Matthew Garland, he posted it, and all the real estate people posted it. Single women are higher home ownership rates than single men.
Any ethnicity?
Any ethnicity, but it's even higher for Black people.
That's so. I mean, that is true for home ownership, college degree, a bunch of other things as well. Okay.
Yeah.
But ironically enough, I think not income. I still think that
left wages out.
Black men actually earn more. Men across the board still earn more money than women. Even though women have higher degrees, they're getting degrees at higher levels. The homeowners at higher levels. Variety of other things.
I think executive positions as well.
Well, every like professional position,
Yeah.
men still are at much higher levels than women. Okay, so let's talk about that situation.
Ladies, don't let no man ask you what you bring to the table if you don't have no table of his own and don't own a house. Y'all say I'm pandering, so I'm gonna turn up the pandering shit on y'all this year, okay? Go ahead. Blackout time. Those are my thoughts.
Preview.
Yeah, those are my thoughts. Don't let no man ask you what you bring to the table and you don't own your house. Tyreek, I'm sorry. It is what it is. Clip this one up. I'm going for Derek Jackson. Don't care what
Derek Jackson. So, listen, guys. I don't think that that's the best way to go about it.
That's the way I'm going about it. What? Okay. When he asked you what you bring to the table, let me see the deed to the house, my boy.
I don't think that's the best way to go about it.
Panda is pandering.
Panda is pandering. So here's the thing. So I think that it's an interesting situation.
Are you taking a rational approach?
For sure.
Gotcha.
I think it's a variety of different factors that go into why women might be higher home ownership. Is interesting. A lot of times men may have more financial obligation.
Absolutely.
When you look at, the child support system, right?
Finish. I got a question for you.
When you look at potentially having to provide for other people, a lot of that times, women, provide for other people as well, but the man might have, other financial obligations.
Just like the whiteout answer, though.
Look, man,
no, that's not black. I ain't gonna let y'all do this.
No, keep going.
No, but I want to. I just want to interject really quickly because this might be a time. Did y'all see Killer Mike's thoughts about child support?
We're gonna talk about child support on Blackout.
Okay. I just want. All right.
We're gonna talk about.
Great idea.
Okay.
Child support will be covered on Blackout.
Gotcha.
But I just feel that I feel like this is a dangerous conversation because it's one of these conversations where it pins men against women.
I agree.
And I don't think that that's the most productive thing to do. I do feel that everybody should bring something to the table. Now, home ownership is good, but it's not the deciding factor. I've never dated somebody and asked them if they owned a home.
Gotcha.
That was never a deciding factor for me personally.
Yeah.
Right? If you got a good career, if you got ambition, if you doing
What are
your
the
thing,
qualities you are looking for in a
No,
woman?
but the real question, like,
Oh, you good, boy.
So like, this is for both of y'all. We should do this now, but I would be interested in like, well, what are the questions that we are asking? If as we're dating, we should add that.
well,
to the
we
notes as
also
well.
live in an economy where it's becoming increasingly harder to become a homeowner.
That's true.
Very true.
Even if you make a lot of money, it's still becoming
It's very difficult.
increasingly harder to become a homeowner. And is home ownership even worth it at this point in time?
We had an argument about
Wall
this.
Street Journal put an article out that said that now it's actually more beneficial to be a renter than to be a homeowner.
Or could that be propaganda for us to have home ownership or strive to it?
That's not like that.
Right. If we just talked about the statistics about the appreciation over the past 8 years going up 80% and us not having homes, then we don't participate in any of that.
Question for the chat.
This is Hoodie Troy, y'all.
Question for the chat.
I'm about to get filthy.
Would you rather have $1.5 million in cash and be renting an apartment, or would you rather have $1 million home and $500,000 in cash? Question for the chat.
At what stage of life would be important?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, wherever anybody's at in life, I
yeah.
want to see what they.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
That's okay.
See.
Home and cash. Option 2, homeowner, renting an apartment.
Easy. 1.5, 1.5.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more here.
It's
It's about split.
yeah.
I mean,
What would you guys rather do?
I'd have the home and the $500,000 in cash.
I'll get the 1.5 and get on my futures grind and turn that to 5 point something, 5.8, and then go get the home.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah, that's why I said it really is situational. What's yours?
I'd rather have cash. One
1.5?
thing I learned early on is that shout out to Raekwon and Wu-Tang, and they played a major development in my life. And one thing I learned early on, and I'll never forget, is cash rules everything around me. And 24 years later, cash still rules.
Mhm.
So things get hard. You never know. It's ups and downs in this game. You might have to, you might have some downtime. Like it might be a recession. Person with the money's always going to end up winning.
Well, the home is paid for, or are we still paying for it?
No, you're paying like a mortgage.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. If I have 1.5 and things are hard, then that becomes an asset I can now sell. I could do 500. I could invest and I could flip that. But I'm saying for me, right, it would be like, yo, I have kids. Like, I'm gonna, you know what I mean?
And then you got property tax.
That's true.
You can write. You can.
But you can write that.
Your apartment could be a write-off
if it's in your business name. But the property tax thing is interesting because they changed the laws over, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where you can only write off up to 10 to 12,000 of your property tax. In the past, it obviously you could do more, but things have changed over the past few years with the tax code. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did read that. I was looking into it.
Does YouTube allow you to do a poll?
Yep.
Like Instagram? How you do a poll?
I've seen other shows do it.
Yeah.
Mike.
You gotta say like Nikki 1.5. Give me the money.
Mike, work. Mike
1.5.
Mike, work on that for next
Yeah.
week, please. But we need that for Blackout, actually.
Absolutely.
Please. Please figure that part out of it. But once again, it's interesting. I think that that's an interesting conversation.
And also, where's the home? Because that determines how much it appreciate. Like, if the home's in Ohio, shout to everybody in Ohio. My thoughts may be different on if it's in New York, Houston, Atlanta.
But then it's like, here's the thing, right? Miami. I just saw this something on the Wall Street Journal about the whole entire East Coast. New York's is sinking, right? You look at like Miami. In 50 years, South Beach is not even going to be here anymore. Nobody cares because they're just living for the moment.
Yeah.
But take that into consideration. Global warming is a real thing. And so what about, I just seen something in California where a $15 million home was about to fall into the ocean. What the hell is that? Right. So you buy a home. And then now you can't even get flood insurance. You can't get flood insurance in Florida. You can't get fire insurance in California. You can't get fire insurance in California where they have fires all the time. So now you buy a home and then your house burns down, then you're screwed.
That's why it's important where you buy your home.
But I'm just saying, if you buy a home in New York might not be New York in 50 years.
But that's what I say. There's determining factors, right? If I got that $1.5 million home and it appraised at 3.5, like there's certain determining factors that
right now. Like if you buy a home, $1.5 million home right now, it's not going to be worth 3.5 million tomorrow.
I'm not saying we don't know. There's determining factors. If it was worth 2 million, if it was worth 2.5 million,
let's not complicate this. You buy a home.
Don't know.
I'm telling you, you do know. You buy a home for 1.5 million and it's worth 1.5 million because you brought it for 1.5 million.
No. Here's a perfect example, right? Somebody buys a home that's in foreclosure. We even spoke about. Let me finish.
No, you're using outliers.
That's why I said there are determining factors. I'm just saying,
look, we're making it an easy conversation to have. We're not using outliers. We're saying if you buy a home, if the home is worth 1.5 million, and you have $500,000 in cash, or if you're renting an apartment and you have 1.5 million in cash, let's not.
But that's why I'm saying, even in the purchasing of a home, there are factors. So if I have the home that's 1.5 million, how much did it appraise for? Because there could have been equity that had been there already, right? That all you said was 1.5.
You complicate. Oh my God!
Real estate is a complicated.
Ladies and gentlemen, the blackout hour.
Real estate is a complicated process. Blackout hour.
Put half of it into tech, trade the other half, come out with 4.5.
Or just find you somebody that's going to trick.
Two simmies. That's the other plan.
The simp economy went crazy.
And start getting them to put in like 5 to 10 grand a month into your. Y'all be talking. They get to talking to my comment like, yo, I'm rich. I don't need the pander. And we gonna act like I ain't going on 11 vacation with a Colombiana either. What is we talking about? I was him before I got it. What the fuck is we talking about? If we get demonetized, I'll pay the monetization. What is we talking about? Yo, he can't afford to go. Well, I went on 11 on accident. Come on, man. Tune in every Wednesday. These are just jokes.
I will not be appearing. I have a hood.
Don't play with me.
Thank you to the Department of Justice.
Yes.
Thank you to the chat.
To the good folks of the Department of Justice. Tune
in tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. We'll be on, y'all. Market Mondays.
Yes.
A GMA appearance. Congratulations, fellas. That's pretty surreal. That's pretty dope.
Yes. Good morning, America, ladies and gentlemen. We will be wearing suits.
Yes.
And to all of our parents, I'll be acting like this in the morning. I promise you I won't. I'll be back to 2020 in prim and proper. See, VOOVTI. 2 index, 2 tech. Okay.
Now they say that I'm off the chain. I'm out of here. I'm leaving. It's Shotty's fault, and I'm leaving.
Yep.
All right, man. Check out Market Mondays tomorrow. Check out Earn Your Leisure tomorrow. Great episode at 1:00. Check out Blackout on Wednesday. Great episode at 10 o'clock. And check us out on Good Morning America, 8:25
tomorrow.
Eastern Standard Time, AM tomorrow.
Red Panda weekend is Saturday in Houston.
I saw that.
Red Panda Rebellion.
So go time.
Happy birthday to our brother Spanks. Spanks, happy birthday, my brother. I believe tomorrow is his birthday. And this weekend kicks off Pisces season. So shout out to all the Pisces. We will be going way up.
Love. Pisces season's in the building, man. We out here. We out here. See y'all for my birthday. Prince and Minx, New York City. Invite only vibes. Strict dress code enforced.
So we got to wear Prince and Minx?
No, Prince or.
Okay.
And or.
Got you. Okay.
So either animal print or fur. But if you want to, you could wear both. That's okay. But animal and sneakers don't count. So if your only thing is sneakers, you're probably not gonna get it unless you're a girl. You might be able to pull some pumps, some high heel leopard pumps. If you got the black outfit, that might be a vibe. But if you're a guy, don't try to come with some Travis Scotts with the alligator on the
Don't do that.
bottom.
Don't knock my sneakerheads, man.
On some
They gonna
like
get fouled
hidden
with it.
alligator
No gators.
in the swoosh.
They got Maury's on. They good.
Nah, pants or shirt. Pants or shirt.
Maury's ain't good.
No. Pants or shirt.
Damn.
Pants or shirt. Either
Wow.
pants or shirt, man.
Surprised we went there.
Yes, sir. All right.
That's it, man. We out. Love is love. Be good to each other. Be good to each other.
Peace. This is